Hello, today I will be presenting for my professional and technical communication course about my interview with a packaging professional, as well as an infographic about the packaging profession. Who did I interview? I interviewed Aaron J. Dutch, a packaging engineer at Milwaukee Tool in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He has been in the career for 7 years now, and he has worked in other companies, but got a position at Milwaukee Tool. Why did I interview him? I interviewed him because he was a former UW Stout graduate, so he understood how the UW school works and trains for packaging professionals. So he was able to give me tips throughout what courses, at least from his knowledge, were good for me to understand the most, such as graphics design classes for e-tech, as well as other courses that he really made sure that I should know to get down. He also really knew the profession very well. He knew what sides of the profession, such as marketing and graphics and distribution. So he knew all those sides of the profession. So he helped to better my knowledge as well as to help understand how the flow of the profession works. I was also interviewed him because I was interested in Milwaukee Tool to maybe get an internship or a co-op there, or maybe even a job there in the future. And the biggest thing is I was able to actually set up a time for an interview with him because there are other packaging professionals that just didn't have time in their schedule. So he did, so that was great. What did I learn from Aaron as a packaging professional? The one big key thing I learned from him is to be yourself instead of someone you aren't. The big key point that he wanted to say is that he's seen people who have tried to come into the profession who've tried to be something they're not. And from that, it seems that if they're trying to be something they're not, they end up failing in the end. So he really wanted to emphasize to be yourself and really get committed to what you're doing so that you don't end up being something that you really aren't. Another thing he said is to broaden your just general communication skills, because some people try and get really good at one particular thing, like face to face, or they really get really good at sending out, emails. He told me the best thing to do would be to broaden all my communication skills so that instead of being good at just one thing, you can be good at multiple things. You can understand the different forms of communication rather than just one, so that you don't have any issues later down the road if you're trying to talk to someone globally and you have no clue what to do. Another thing he said to do was to check emails regularly. He said that he usually gets 25 to 100 emails a day. And for someone at school like me, I usually get up to maybe 5 emails a day, and they're usually not important emails. So having 25 to 100 emails that are work related, he said to make sure to check on your emails regularly because there will always be important information you need to know or get to others. I also learned that you really need to understand the departments and get to know people in the departments because all the departments work together always. So you need to understand how marketing and sales and distribution, you need to understand how all those different departments work. And if you can figure out all those different departments and who they are in the department, then you can work together to be a more efficient team. I also learned to work on speaking abilities also just in general, instead of just also broadening communication skills, because a lot of times it will be face-to-face with doing presentations about a product or working on a new project in general. So he said to always work on speaking abilities, maybe go to a class, just for speaking, try something different that you wouldn't normally want to do, just that is speaking related, try an acting class, do something just to get your communication skills improved. He also said try to get dedicated to your project, because he said sometimes even for him too, there'll be a project that he really isn't into, but he kind of has to do it anyways. He said really, even if you don't like it, try and get dedicated, try and work your hardest you can for that product so you can make it your own, put your name on it, and it can be something you, even though you didn't initially want to do it, you got happy and you got the best product out in the end. Lastly, the biggest thing that I learned from him is to understand your career. With packaging in general, there's really two sides of packaging. You have your buyers and your makers for your packages. So he really said, if I want to understand that, I need to understand the different companies in general, so that if I want to go into a buyer of packaging instead of a maker, I really need to understand my career so that I can get into the right business instead of choosing one that isn't right for me. About my infographic process, I wanted to go over the general different groups and types of communication. For the groups, I have your corporate, so your in-house communication skills. I have departmental, which is more of like a subclass of the corporate, with each different department and team, as well as global communication with everyone internationally who's an in-house. I also wanted to emphasize the different types from face-to-face to digital to paper, and how the different types, different groups of communication could have different types of communication as like a percentage in the graphs I have to the right. I learned a lot through this infographic of different types of communication skills and what I'll have to work on. I learned there's a lot of diversity amongst the different groups of communication. So for me, I would eventually like to try and go global, because I would love to travel in general. So I'd have to understand that if I want to do that, I would have to, of course, work on digital at the start, and then eventually I would have to work on paper and face-to-face when I am able to travel overseas to the other offices and buildings. I also wanted to firstly understand my own group, because I don't want to get confused with different other groups of communication, so I want to stick to mine and really emphasize who I'm working with, because not all people are particular about a type of communication while others are. Some people would rather get a paper copy of a draft or product rather than digital. They'd rather give it to have you give it to them face to face. It all depends on the person. So I'd really want to work and understand my team first, so that I could better us as a group and as a company in general.